Hey, so I'm doing the IFG challenge separation learning segment for this week, and what we're going to be doing is going to be based off of something called the Butterfly of Iron, or Farfalle de Ferro. It's sort of a kata that is in the Italian school that's not actually part of the source text, and I'm going to modify it a little bit, and it's going to include a piece of footwork that you might have done, you might not have done, and it's called a Volta, which means a turn. So let's talk about what a Volta looks like first. So to start, here's what a Volta is. You're gonna be in your typical fencing stance. Take a passing step a couple times. Think about the way that your hips are sort of moving from side to side when you're doing this. So this is what's generating the power when you're throwing a Oberhau. And we're going to take advantage of that hip movement in just a second with keeping our feet planted. And so what this does is it keeps our true measure the same, but it allows us to change our upper body positioning, and it also allows us to do things like use our legs for leverage when we're doing a wrestle, but generate that hip power. So all we're going to do is we're going to leave our feet in the same place. We're going to turn like that. You can leave your upper body in the same position, so this will be a little hard to see. If I'm like this, I can do something like that. Another thing I can do is I can lean away like that. But essentially all we're doing is we're taking our feet and we're rotating them. You're not going 180 degrees. You're going something like 160. So it's not going to be the exact same line you start on, but it's going to be a little bit off. All we're going to be using the Volta for today is as a means of changing direction, and also a means of creating distance, but then explosively closing that distance at the same time. And so what does that mean? Let's think about if we were to create and close distance with a passing step, right? If I'm here and there's some imaginary fighter in front of me, and I decide that I want a little bit of space to work with, and I take this big of a step back, I've now got this much space between me and that fighter, which is fine. That means I might not get hit. However, if I want to immediately thrust into that fighter, I'm going to have to launch back into this position again, which takes time. And they also generally have an idea of what I've just done. I've just created that measure and then closed it. However, if I were to instead do a Volta here, and I've got this leg forward, and I twist like that, you can't see it, but what I'm doing with my upper torso is I'm creating a little bit of room. So if I'm here and I Volta, I get that little bit of room, and then I can use that same hip turn to fire back into position and do what I want to do. So the first flow drill is going to be the basics of the Farfalle de Ferro. And all it is Oberhau, thrust, Oberhau, thrust, and then when you get to the end of the line, you're going to find that thrust, if you Volta, that turns really nicely into a Vontag on that side. But so if I cut here, I take a step with my right foot still planted, I come all the way around and I thrust. And I really want a good high oaks thrust. I've got this, my sword is coming in at an angle, so if somebody cuts into me, they're gonna get caught in the cross. Okay, so I'm gonna come in here, and I'm just gonna immediately transfer to the other side, cut into here. Now I've run out of room, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to Volta. I'm going to turn my hips. You'll notice I'm not going straight that way. I'm going this way now. And I'm just going to repeat the pattern. Cut here. Cut here. And it's time for a Volta. So on the other side, turn my hips, and I'm right back to this high Vontag. Now do that however many times it takes to get comfortable with it. If you're already comfortable with it, do it 10 times, do it 15 times. Doesn't really matter, just get your blood flowing. Next thing, we are going to be adding Volta to each step. and we're going to be doing this in the way that I described earlier, where it's a means of thrusting. So what does that mean? So we're going to thrust twice in a row, which is a little bit weird in terms of like an actual encounter. You wouldn't want to do this, but it's a nice way to practice the Volta and kind of see the difference between thrusting without moving and thrusting with the turn of your hips. And when I say thrusting without moving, I mean thrusting without moving your feet. We're going to cut, thrust, Volta, thrust. Cut, thrust, Volta, thrust. And now that I'm at the end of my rope, I'm going to do Volta, cut, thrust, Volta, thrust. And so that is the meat of today's flow drill. You should cut, thrust, Volta, thrust. Do as many times as you want. I tried to do 50. If that gets boring for you, try to get at least 50 Voltas in somehow. You can even count the ones at the end. Honestly, the Voltas you're going to use most are the ones where you don't change direction. You just sort of create measure, or if you're wrestling with somebody, you grab them and you Volta them that way. One thing to be careful of with those stationary Voltas is don't turn the back of your head. If you're voltating to create space, don't be like, hey, you're gonna hit me, and then just do that. That's how you get hit in the back of the head. So be careful with it. So you can Volta and look back over your shoulder.